Hey, I wanted to talk to you a minute today about the gig economy. What is the gig economy? It's basically the side hustle, side income economy that's become so popular today and age. I hope you're still listening to this ad because it's really important for me. I was in the network marketing industry for over 13 years and I had an incredible experience. I learned a ton of things, but there were many things about the industry of network marketing that I really didn't love. One of which was the overinflated products. Number two was the fact that I had to build a team or balance those things that we would call legs, the whole pyramid thing. I really was done with that. About a year ago, I was introduced to a social retail company. Social retail simply means that we are using our social media platforms, which are free, by the way, to promote products and services that we love. The affiliate marketing is booming. Not even going to lie. It's an incredible place to be in. And I am speaking to the woman who's in her 30s or maybe in her 40s, and she'd like to create that extra income. She'd like to create income on her own time. And she'd like to do it in a company that isn't all about the hype, that has some real products that she can get behind, and would work with somebody who wants to teach her how to do that. If that's you, then I would really love it if you would reach out to me. Feel free to comment below or leave me an email. Scan the code. I'm sure there's a code somewhere if you're watching on my YouTube channel, but I would love to get in touch with you. And this is why. The company that I'm with, modere.com or modere.ca, depending on where you're at, check out shiftingretail.com. So that's shiftingretail.com. I want you specifically to go check out the values of this company and what their mission is. That was really important for me. I got flown down to the corporate offices and I had a chance to meet with the corporate crew and meet with the visionaries that are really driving the company forward. And what I discovered is this. The first thing they said to me was, Candice, when people come here from a network marketing company, they start making money. Now, disclaimer, this is work. This is going to take work. This is going to take energy, effort, time, and skill. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Those don't exist, at least not ones that I would like to put my name behind. However, this company pays us 10 to 36% on commissions of whatever we've moved within our business. And we get paid daily. We get paid up to twice daily. Biggest, coolest thing about this, if I move product, I get paid on the product, period. No balancing legs, no having to do any of that stuff. If product moves because of a referral that I did, whether it was through my social media, through a swipe up influencer, or a person-to-person conversation, doesn't matter. I'm going to get paid on it. And for me, being paid on the work and the effort that I do is important. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, I invite you to head over to shiftingretail.com or head over to Smiley, that's CSMILEY.shiftingretail.com, and you'll be able to join my team directly. If you've got some more questions, please comment below or find a way to contact me and get in touch, because I would love to share with you how we're building this and how affiliate marketing is the place for you to be. And trust me, once I show you how to do it with this company, I will show you the many companies, brick and mortar stores, you name it, sole proprietors, entrepreneurs who have an affiliate-based idea. And once you can do it with one company, you can do it with any of them. So I'm excited to teach you that. In fact, so excited, we're going to give you 120 days of done-for-you posts or text that will help you so that you don't have to worry about what to post or when to post or how to post it. We're going to give all of that to you. You just got to show up with drive, determination, and some cash flow to get you started. $39.99 gets you your affiliate link and code and gets ready to start. Maybe you want to try some product too. It's awesome. But up to 2 customer orders actually qualifies you for commission. So you don't even have to place an order, provided you've got customer orders that are moving in your business. Brand new customer orders qualify you for commissions every month. Super cool. Definitely an opportunity for somebody who wants to come in, put some effort in, and work with integrity, work with honesty, but really begin to use the social media time that right now is really just wasted time and turn that into cash flow. Awesome. Hope you have a wonderful day and keep enjoying our show.
All right. Well, welcome back to Create the Ripple podcast. I'm your host for this special episode where our guest is the one and only Candice Smiley. That's right. Tables are being turned on Candice today. We get to hear all about Candice, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait, and I'm ridiculously honored to be able to interview Candice. I'm so excited. Okay, so get your popcorn ready, grab yourselves a drink. This is gonna be good. Candice, as usual, you know the routine. I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself, give us your little bio of sorts, and then I have some questions to ask you. Take it away.
It's quite fun to be on the other side, of this. Okay, so my bio is I like to start that I'm first and foremost my mom, and I think the reason for that is that, you know, having kids has just totally changed my life in terms of perspective, energy, effort. So I'm a mom. Then I'm also a podcast. I'm now a blogger. I like to communicate. I've got a background in event planning. I've got a background in real estate. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have an interest in so many different things. And I do things like the podcast because I want to communicate. And I think that's one of my core values: connection, communication, having conversations, and having conversations that take courage to be had. And that was the whole reason for starting the podcast, was to hold space for conversations that mattered. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. Well, I love that. Well, thank you for being here today. Candice, can you tell me your tagline, trust the niggle, tell the truth? What does that mean to you?
Well, the Trust the Niggle part came from an amazing book that I read by Rebecca Campbell, which I'm trying to think of the name, Rise Sister Rise. And she had this part about the niggle, and I have the card deck that goes with it. And the niggle is that annoying feeling. It's entirely inconvenient when it shows up. It hits you in your gut. It's your intuition. It's your higher self. It's whatever you want to call it. But it's basically when you know that you're not doing whatever that thing is that you need to be doing, saying, etc. So for me, if I look back on my life, I have been distracted more than I should have been. I've made some really, really poor decisions. Largely because my gut went, I don't know if this is a good idea. And I ignored that. And so I really wanted to create a space to talk about the niggle. Now, the niggle can also be a very positive thing. It's sort of that I really want to do this thing, but I'm not sure how to do it. That's also a niggle, at least in my mind. The thing that says, well, that may be scary because of change. I have always kind of enjoyed change, to be honest. I don't like it when change is thrust on me, but I really enjoy change. I think I've got a wanderer soul. So I like to travel. It's part of the reason why I got into the tiny house movement. It's part of the reason why I go backcountry camping, as I like to be on the move all the time. And people are pretty known for getting on a phone with me and saying, what are you up to these days? Which I used to find a little bit offensive. And then I realized it's because I'm always in process of change. So I wanted to talk about that, both within my life and also to create a space for people to talk about that in their own lives. I think a lot of people would be more honest if they were talking to people that were honest as well, because our subconscious is always talking. And then the tell the truth comes from the fact that I have kept my mouth shut for a very long time. I was sexually assaulted at 17 by a boyfriend, and I kept my mouth shut. Inside, I was absolutely screaming to have him stop, and I could not find the words to say it. And it's interesting because ever since that moment, when I am in that fight or flight, uncomfortable situation, I tend to shut my mouth. And as I do, I'm always very intrigued because it's very, very, very loud up here. You know, whether it's the monkey voices, as people say it, or, my own internal dialogue, it's loud. There's screaming, there's talking, there's all kinds of things, but it doesn't come out. And I mean, there's certainly a lot of ideas I have around that, whether it's, past lives where I didn't feel safe enough to share it, or just simply a learned pattern of behavior that I didn't think that what I said mattered. And so there's a lot wrapped up in that for me. And so the tell the truth is really first and foremost about telling myself the truth, or listening to my, guests tell their truth. You have to be honest here first,
Because if you can't be honest with yourself, you're not going to make any kind of change. You're not going to move forward at all. And you certainly can't be honest with anybody else. You may not be telling any lies, but you're probably not living from that space of real honesty, transparency, authenticity, whatever word you're aligning with, where everything just sort of matches. And so I think I'm on a personal mission to get to the point where I'm sort of always moving via spirit, right? Trusting that niggle, step by step, day by day, living in the moment, and then telling the truth about it, which means when someone says something that I think is offside, that I have the courage to say offside. When something seems to, right down to it's a compliment. Hey, I absolutely love those shoes. Hey, you have a beautiful smile. I think that's living in our truth too. And so the trust the niggle, tell the truth is broad, but it also, I think it allows for the kinds of conversations that I really want to be having.
Right. Absolutely. And that's well said. I know that I'm so sorry you went through that, first of all, and I appreciate you sharing your story. Why now? Why is now the time to start telling the truth for you and sharing your story? Like, what brought you to the place you are in this moment to be able to speak on the things that you have gone through?
A lot of effing therapy.
Yes. Yes to therapy, people.
Yeah. And I think that's certainly part of it. I think, the older I get, the more I realize that what anybody thinks about me actually doesn't really matter. And if they can't relate to me, that's actually okay. I think part of it, with me not speaking my truth for a long time was because I was worried what people would think. I think I was worried about judgment. I was worried about my reputation. I was worried about a lot of different things. I was worried about being judged, certainly. And one of the craziest things about when I would start to tell people about, like, say, the abuse, is people would say, well, why were you there in the first place? And in talking to some of my amazing guests, that they've helped me reframe that, which is sometimes people are asking those questions because they want to avoid the situation themselves. So it didn't actually have any judgment to me, but because I hadn't healed the situation, I hadn't healed the trauma that had come with the situation. I always heard it as abuse, right? I always heard it as, well, why were you there in the first place? Not from a powerful place or maybe their questioning place. I heard it from a very judgmental place. And so I think I really had to come to a place where I sat down and was really honest with myself and told the truth to myself. For a long time, I would describe what had happened, say, for example, at 17, I'd say, well, I was with a boy and he took something that didn't belong to him, which was very ambiguous, rather than saying I was sexually assaulted, because that felt very, very heavy. It felt very, very strong. I couldn't say I didn't feel like I could say no. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to reinforce my boundaries, and I didn't know how to ask for help. And to be honest with you, Angel, I was worried about making him feel uncomfortable. And that's partly me. I don't want to cause offense for anybody. I want to have the freedom to do my own thing. That's kind of, freedom is really important for me. It's one of my core values, but I also don't want to point the finger, right? Like, I could have done different things. I could have, there were so many different elements to it that I've never wanted to be like, he assaulted me. Does that make sense?
Right.
That
Yeah.
always felt inappropriate to the entirety of the situation and minimizes the potential lesson within it, because it's just a thing that happened and we are meaning making machines, right? So I have assigned a negative meaning to it. So I think that's been a big piece of it, is I haven't wanted to make people uncomfortable. And that's continued throughout my life. If I look at situations, whether it was, working for a male boss who I felt like was taking advantage of me sexually and emotionally and that kind of thing, getting into relationships where the partners weren't honest, or they cheated, or they, fraud, whatever you want to call it, I was always uncomfortable saying things that might make someone else uncomfortable. And so I just chose, as many women do, to live with the discomfort because that was easier. But the problem with that is that I'm punishing myself, and then I'm not showing up authentically. And again, our subconscious are talking all the time. And so if I'm out of integrity in one part of my life, then it leads itself to being out of integrity in other parts of my life, which of course we know doesn't feel good. And that's where things like anxiety come up, guilt, shame, all that other stuff. And so the why now, I think, has come because last year in 2020, I went through a significant breakup with a gentleman I expected to spend the rest of my life with. One of those forever kind of loves, right? That ended. And I couldn't hold it together anymore. I'm sure it was a combination of the fact that I'm still going through a divorce, which has been challenging. We had, things with the world shutting down, lots of different changes happen. And I think it was just, I'd always promised myself at some point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to heal. I'm going to look all of these scary, awful things that happened in the face. I'm going to cry. I was scared once I started crying, I might never stop, to be honest with you. And I never felt safe enough to stop, or my career needed me, or my kid needed me, or something. And when that happened, the world had shut down. Things were in a certain space. I was living with my parents. I had support for Inara, and I just found myself in a place where I remember sitting in front of my computer. I think I was interviewing somebody in the first edition of the Create the Rope podcast, and I realized that I was about to change and that there were going to be some fundamental shifts in the way I thought about myself and then maybe the way I dealt with things. And then it was probably time to just go through the awful healing. And thankfully, I have a big network that I love very much. And so I sent out an SOS text to pretty much anybody I knew. I had a feminine balance coach who was hugely helpful. I'll put her information down below. I saw a therapist, pretty much any other healer that would offer me their time, space, energy in one way or another. I overdosed on healing and spent a lot of time journaling, crying, just dealing with it, and realized that, if one woman tells the truth about her life, the world splits open. And I'll post that quote down below, but it was just time. It was just time. I just kind of ran out of juice to keep on trying to pretend that it was all okay when it really hadn't been for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you recognized it and it's unfortunate that you had to go through that, but there's always these life lessons and it's taking you somewhere even bigger and more into your purpose. And, I really hear you as a mom, as a businesswoman, as a human, sharing this with our listeners and being able to speak to others will really help. And I really want to get into what was it like starting over and overcoming everything that you've experienced, all the trauma, all the betrayal, also while being a single mother?
Well, I think motherhood is one of those things that is a profound experience. It's a trauma in and of itself, right? To bring another human being into the world, there's a certain amount of pain, right, that comes with trauma. And so I've been really thinking about that. And I remember, so when I heard Inara's heartbeat for the very first time at the anatomy ultrasound, I felt like my whole world literally came to a stop. It was like it was spinning, 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 heard her sound. And I just was like, wow. And then it started again. And to be honest, I haven't been the same since that moment. It was pretty clear to me during my pregnancy that the relationship I had with her dad was falling apart for lots of reasons. And I don't want to assign any blame there, but there were some moments where I realized that it was largely going to be about me being a single mom. Now that was a challenge for me because I felt like a failure. So it's that further conversation. And maybe if I'd had the courage to have a conversation that mattered with him, it may have gone even differently, right? Like I got to honor that, because I wouldn't have said anything at that point to make him feel uncomfortable and say, I'm not feeling supported. I'm feeling really left out. I feel like we're not in a good place. Who knows? We might still have gotten divorced, right? But maybe it would have changed the trajectory of those different things. But I remember being 3 months pregnant, looking in the mirror and being like, I'm going to end up doing this on my own. And that was part of it. And so the journey really started, after that. Now, I wish I'd had the courage to ask for more help sooner. The world did not feel like a very safe place at that point, right? I was still functioning from a very much a traumatic space in my own mind and my heart. And so trusting people was a challenge, mostly because I hadn't yet trusted the Niggle to trust myself, right? I was the one who had chosen the bad boyfriends. I was the one, you lose trust in yourself, right? When I got cheated on by one of my partners, 4 times that I know about. Okay. So we're not even going to go into, there's more. Okay. So it wasn't just once and it wasn't one time, it was multiple times, multiple lies. The more I discover, the more I'm like, oh my word. But if I'm honest, he admitted to cheating 6 months into our relationship. And so I had an opportunity at that point to redefine our relationship, to have a conversation, to not continue to be with that person. And I did. So I was ignoring the Niggle that would have told me, hey, dude's not who he says he is. That's so peace out, right? Or stay and deal with the consequences, which, ended up doing. But I remember finishing when I found out, when he admitted he had cheated, that it wasn't actually the cheating that was like the act of him cheating wasn't the big deal for me anyway, a very personal moment here, but it was the fact that I realized that our relationship had disintegrated to the point where we weren't communicating, right? We weren't in the same space. We weren't, that I was like, well, cheating's not the big deal. You know what the deal breaker was? The deal breaker was that he wanted me to just get over it. And I was like, I need time to work through this. I need time to process this. And so ended up leaving that relationship. Things got worse from there. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I remember saying to a lady, back in the day, she said to me, you've lost some trust. And I said, yeah, I've lost trust in men. And she's like, no, you didn't. You didn't lose trust in men. Men are men. You picked a doozy, wasn't his best day, whatever. I said, no, you're right. I've lost trust in women. The fact that a woman would, like, how dare she, right? Broke the sisterhood code, right? And she said, no, you didn't lose trust in women. You trust a lot of women. I was like, oh, that's true. She's like, you lost trust in yourself. And she said, so you need to not worry about what he did or who she was. You need to focus on you and figure out what it is that keeps putting you in this situation. More healing I didn't want to make time for. So what's it like? I think it's just like anything else. You wake up one day and realize this is something that you're going to go through and you need to figure out how to do it.
Absolutely. And well said, because I've seen and heard you with Inara and the lessons that you instill. Like, it's okay to feel these emotions. Like, emotions are energy in motion. Like, if you are angry, be angry. The power of no, I've heard you say, where it's a complete sentence, and boundaries. As she gets older, she's going to, I'm sure she asks questions now, and she's like, kids are resilient. They see everything at such a young age and know. But how are you going to kind of guide her? What will you say to her to continue to instill the power of no and the boundaries and setting boundaries, maintaining boundaries, like, making sure that she knows how to trust that Niggle? And do you feel like it's just going to be a natural thing for her? Or is it something that, you've had some personal development? Will this just be kind of something that she has to go through herself before she gets to the same place?
I'm definitely really focusing on her emotional intelligence right now. And I think it lends itself to her being a little on the wild side because I want her to be able to say no and say no powerfully.
Yeah.
I've also told her point blank, you're right. I have let her see me get angry. And I've never seen women in my life get angry. I've seen them be passive aggressive. I have seen them, be frustrated and I'm going to talk to your dad when he gets home, or, that kind of thing. But I haven't actually seen them like righteously angry. And to be honest, the other day, recently, a gentleman who I have a great relationship with challenged part of sort of my belief around being a woman and being deeply intuitive, which is not something that men always understand, right? Men are like forward, they're very straight, they have a lot different thinking, good thing they do. We're women, we're like this, right? We're the wave, right? And so I was talking about being in my feminine and being in that presence and owning my intuition, which I really believe that women have, especially around childbirth and stuff like this. And he came back and basically mocked it. And for the first time, I was angry and I was like, how dare you? How dare you put me in the box? Right? Like, anyway. And I think it's important that we as women say that kind of thing. And he was shocked. He's like, I'm sorry. I said, I'm not looking for your story. I'm asking you to re-examine that. Just because you don't understand my emotion, this thing that I'm going through, you don't know how to have a baby. So don't tell me what process I need to go through. Like, anyway, it was a moment. But I remember often feeling that rage, and a lot of women are feeling a lot of rage right now.
Yeah.
Because we've been keeping our mouths shut. There's still a discrepancy between what we make. Society is not set up for a woman like me who wants to keep on working. Let's say I had a career. It's not set up for me to take a year or 2 years off to be present to raise my child and, focus on, feeding and all that other stuff that comes with it, and continue to work on my education in a way that when I reemerged into society, I hadn't lost anything for choosing to be a parent. We should not be penalizing parents.
No.
They choose to be parents and raise the children, period.
Oh, yes. I think I just seen a study on that where the equivalent is having 2 jobs to parenthood, right? Raising children is not an easy, I mean, I don't have children yet of my own, but I have seen, right? I'm a daughter, I understand. And to be put into a box and classified as something, it's just not right.
No, and I'm really sick and tired of, I always lead with mom. And someone said, why do you always lead with mom? And I was like, because that is the job. That's the job I signed up for. I signed up to mold and shape and be an example for, which is why I continue to work and why I let her see my emotions, why she gets to see me cry. She's seen me go through, I struggle with things like depression. I struggle with things like suicide in my past. I've never hid those things. I have been careful with how I communicate them. That's my job. But I've also not hidden them away. And so I've said things like, Mom is really sad today. Mom's not sad because of anything you did or anything anybody else did. Mom just needs a good cry today. And she gets it. She goes, I get it, Mommy. I was mad yesterday. And I'm like, I know. Let's talk about that. So I want her to talk about it. I want her to come home and say, Mom, somebody did something to me today and it felt weird. It felt uncomfortable. If she can't communicate that here, then where can she do it? And so, the living for me on this level of authenticity at my core, it's about creating a space where she can be an experience. And I've told her, I said, even if Mommy or Daddy says something and it feels weird or uncomfortable to you, you get to say something. We might still say, I'm your parent. You need to do this thing. This is why. But at the end of the day, I said, you get to even question Mommy and Daddy, because if you don't get to question us, then how can you question anything else in the world? And I'm big enough to handle it. Ask me the question, kiddo. I'll tell you the answer. So, that comes up a lot, I think, as I am trying to be transparent for her.
Right. And that's so powerful. It's a really, really good way of looking at raising your children, and it starts with having the conversations, because they are learning so young and they see and they pick up and they read and they can feel your emotions. So when it trickles down, like I think I'm really big into research and study, guys, in case you didn't know, but there was one about how a pregnant woman, the emotions that she feels through her pregnancy, the baby embodies that, right? Like it shows as they are born and grow up and how they cope and handle things. So I think it's really, really important that you have those conversations and that people talk about those conversations, right? Especially because she's going to grow up and she's going to have relationships of her own, and she's going to, people are going to try to put her in a box, and we need Anara telling people like F off, and just like, come on, Anara. And she's
and then come home and say, Mommy, I said a bad word. And I'll be like, that's totally allowed. Do not do it again. But in this situation, you get a pass. Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh. And now, now your life you've made it a little bit more simple. You are a minimalist. You live in a tiny home. Like, what on earth made you do that? And like, I know that you like to recommend that to others. Like, how does that help you in your life?
Well, I didn't know this one was going to make me cry, but apparently this is the one that's going to make me cry. when I realized that I needed to leave my marriage, which came, so 3 months in, I knew that. I stayed. We worked through some stuff. We tried, right? 6 days after Nara was born, I moved into the spare room. And that's where I stayed until I moved out of the house. And a big part of that was realizing that I was going to need to restructure my life. And the life I'd had with the boyfriend before the gentleman I married was a big life. We were both entrepreneurs, single, no kids, right? Double income, no kids. And we lived pretty big. And it was in that relationship that that gentleman ended up leaving me with $350,000 worth of debt. Bad debt, not good stuff, bad debt. He fled the country. I don't know where in the world he is now. But the reality is there was an impact. There was a financial impact. And so I sold everything at that particular point. I navigated foreclosure court, lawyers being sued. It was nasty, Angel. I don't, it's a few years of my life that was horrendous. And I can remember, how did I get there? Trusting somebody, and I was pretty naive at that point. Was I just ignoring the niggle? Yeah, you bet I was. I didn't want to believe it's true. I think that a lot of people end up in situations and you don't want to believe it's true. And I had invested 4.5 years into that relationship, and we'd built businesses together. He's the one who introduced me to being an entrepreneur. So I can't even be mad at him because I learned so much. However, navigating what I had to navigate, choosing not to go into bankruptcy, choosing instead to do a consumer proposal. So I had to work pretty hard to make some money. There was a lot of things that I had to do. And I remember promising myself, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to come out and I'm going to thrive. And won't be tomorrow. It's probably not going to be anytime soon, but I will. And when I do, I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to laugh a lot. I'm going to travel. I'm going to, give away. I'm going to, because basically I was like, if I give up, he wins.
Yeah.
He's not going to win. And for a long time, I didn't talk about it because I was so ashamed at the choice I had made. So ashamed. But that was a big start because I had to basically let go of everything.
Right.
Then I did, get into a relationship. I got married. It was while I was married that I did the proposal. So there I was again. I felt like I had just kind of got my life kind of sort of back together, and bang, I need to move out. But now I don't have any credit. Now I don't have a backup plan. Now I'm really between a rock and a hard place, and I'm parenting a child.
Right.
So first and foremost, I remember standing in front of the mirror and I hated the way I looked because I hadn't lost any of the baby weight. And I said, number one, we are going to get in shape and we're going to start taking care of ourselves because we cannot make any decisions for anybody else if we are not good. And so, dropped about 50 pounds in 6 months, started to feel better. Of course, that shifted things, right? As soon as you make one positive change, it's so much easier to think about other things. Then I focused on building my business.
Yeah.
And then I started getting rid of the things I knew I didn't need. And it was little things like I went through the books and I got rid of the books. I got rid of anything in my closet that reminded me of my past life, my former life, didn't make me feel good, look good on me, you name it. Problem was, as I was losing weight, I couldn't afford to go and get a lot of clothes, right? Because my husband at the time was doing his best as he could to support me, but we won't go there, okay? So I discovered the power of thrifting, and that I could go and spend $40 and get, things that I felt great in, and discovered consignment. And so it was really a journey, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a lot of it born from a space of, I need a solution to this. How do I figure that out? Getting involved in online groups and doing a lot of selling. I sold a lot of things that I really loved because for me, I was like, well, I can't take it with me. I'm not moving into a new house. I was going to move into, my parents, my grandparents' trailer, right? I was going to totally shift the way my life looked. And I just realized I didn't need it. But the one thing I knew I did need is I needed a pair of wheels, which I bought from my dad, my getaway car. And I wanted to have the things that made me happy. And I was like, what makes me happy? And I was like, well, traveling. And so that was a big part of it, was letting go as much as I can so that I could move as quickly as I needed to and as lightly as I needed to, so I could focus and put my funds where it needed to be, which was taking good care of me and taking good care of Anara. So the fun thing about the whole process is there was a lot of letting go that happened while I did that. And what I didn't realize until, I was basically driving, down through California, doing house sits, experiencing the world with Anara, and she was 3 and we were free and we were figuring out who we were and what we were post, relationship change, was I noticed a reduction in my anxiety. When I opened up my suitcase, which is what I was living out of at the time, I loved every single piece that was in there. Like, it was all my favorites. None of it held bad energy. None of it made me think of anybody who wasn't good for me. Shoes have always been my friends. I love my shoes. Shoes are friends. Let's be honest.
No, I love your TikTok video of all the you got to check out her TikTok, you guys.
So it was that kind of a thing. And I remember feeling like, this is so good. This feels so good. And then people were like, well, how do you do this? And I was like, well, I don't have a home. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, my mail goes to my parents' house because that's home base for us now. But right now, home is the next house sit for Anara and I. Home is, the trailer I'm staying in. Home is 6 months. I'm going to stay in this house and house sit for this person. This is home for me. And there was some freedom in that, to not necessarily know exactly what was happening, but to know I was safe, I was cared for, I was putting money into good food, good experiences. So why? My life got so much bigger when I was finally able to let go. Now, fast forward now, right? Now I've continued that process. Now it's a lot bigger than that. Now I don't want to shop in a store. It's so weird. The lights are so bright. It's so busy and noisy. And I'm like, who needs half this stuff? Like, what did you come in here for? A black hoodie. Go find the black hoodie. It's easier.
I love that. I love when you say, when I started to live smaller, my life got bigger. You opened up so much space for more opportunity, more growth, more love, right? And just pure happiness after everything that you've been through. It's kind of like going through grief, right? You have to grieve everything you lose, and essentially, whether that is a legit death or a relationship, marriage, anything like that, you're grieving. There's a grieving process and stages to go through. You say, like, I know that you've told me that grief has changed you leading into that. So why do you suggest that others consider living more fully into their truth? And even if it hurts in the moment, like, I know that was what you did as well. So how do you always say, like, you always tell people to do that.
I think a lot of us, we're doing what we think we should do. They're living like I was, right? Not saying what mattered to them because they didn't want to make other people uncomfortable. So out of integrity with themselves, why do we do that? Like, why do we choose to live in integrity with other people's values rather than into our own? Like, what a disservice and hurt that we cause ourselves. So
it's like tradition. I feel like it's just been passed down in generations. So we're just programmed that way.
We are very programmed, 100%. So I think about, when I went through the grieving process and then I shifted and changed, it was suddenly, and still is, to be honest with you, once you recalibrate your life, I don't know how else to put it, but once you recalibrate and you start living from a place that's authentic, I literally feel sick. And you've seen this. I will like shut down. I can barely function because something in my life is out of alignment.
Yeah.
And, I know it wasn't as attuned for years because I had been living so far out of my integrity. I had to recalibrate, which was the grief process. And then when I recalibrated, now it's like, what's off for me? Like, why do I feel sick? Why do I want to throw up all of a sudden? And it can be as simple as, I have to think back. I'm like, when did it start? Oh, it started like 2 days ago. Oh yeah. I overheard somebody and they said something and I should have said offside and I didn't. And so it's my subconscious going, you're out of integrity. Get back in integrity.
It's that niggle.
Annoying. Anyway, why is the podcast called it? Because it's my life.
Exactly.
So, I think about that for other people and compare it to how I feel now. Happy, relaxed. I like myself. I like the people I hang out with. I like that I don't feel like I have to hang out with other people. I can say, I'd love to. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm going to say no. That's it. I love that there are people who I still love deeply, family members even, that I just don't talk to. I just avoid being where they are, or I don't reach out to them because I know that we're not aligned, and that's totally cool. It's almost like it's just this incredible freedom. So why do I recommend it? Because it sucks when you're in it. Like, it sucks so bad. But then when you get through it, like, what if we lived in a world where we were all kind to each other, right? Because we owned our own poop. Okay. So my poop is my poop. I got to work through it. And everybody else did the same thing, which means we allowed others to live and do as they please, because we knew everybody was doing their best with what they had, but nothing anybody does was personal. 4 agreements right there for you. But then we all told our truth.
Mm-hmm.
The world would be a totally different place.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, so I want this sort of freedom that I'm learning to live with. I feel guilty about living in this much freedom, to be honest. I'm like,
Do not.
I'm being honest with people.
I know, but
I'm not as tough as I look. Okay. Like, I know I smile a lot. That's a really good mask.
I understand. I truly understand. And I appreciate you sharing that piece that you feel that way. It's just, to me as an outsider, like, what, why? Don't feel guilty. But that's just me saying that. I'm also
telling the truth here so that the other woman who's listening to me doesn't go, what? And I'll be like, yes, I also have imposter syndrome. And I also have this monkey voice in my head that goes, but you haven't done it yet. So why would you do it now? And what would they say? What would they say about you? You can just go, I get it. Like, I totally...
Yeah.
Oats.
So what do you do to like move through that guilt? Do you just kind of sit with it? Do you talk yourself through it? Like, what do you do to get through that guilt?
Well, a big part of who I have been is I run away. Part of that is that I do feel like if I can remove myself from the situation energetically or physically, as it is sometimes, I can see the situation from different eyes, right? So you're able to sort of look at it more objectively, and then I can see a solution for it. Versus when you're in it, it can be really hard to see that.
Right.
The other part is that we don't typically like to stay in things that are uncomfortable, right? We move away from that which is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At least that's me with cardio anyway. So I think a big piece of it is previous to the healing that I went through last year, I would have moved from it. So I would have gone, broken up with one guy and gotten together with somebody else, right? So immediately replace that energy with that. And in my defense, I do a lot of healing in a relationship. I don't leave a relationship or friendship or whatever it is until I am done. Until I'm absolutely sure I've tried every avenue to fix it.
Yeah.
And then I will go, because once I'm gone, we're done. Doors closed, moving on. Part of that has been the sitting with it. So now when shame or guilt comes up, rather than being like, ooh, I need to distract myself from this, I need to go start another business or find another boyfriend or whatever it is, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to invite it to have tea, and I'm going to talk to it. And I know it's kind of funny, but I did that when I was in the grief process. And I can remember sitting on the couch and being like, I need to look at this awful thing that I have done or did, and I need to sit with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to examine it. And the thing is that I know from all the personal development, when you have to do something that's scary or awful, that feeling only lasts for like 38 seconds.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
Yes.
for 30 seconds.
You have to face that fear.
Right? So
Yeah.
I would sit there and then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, it's not so bad anymore. That kind of sucks. But, I wanted to get out of that space where I wasn't in control anymore. And so I think now it's about sitting with it and then figure out what I want to do with it. And then once I've sat with it, it's so much easier to talk to somebody and say, so this shame came up for me today, right? Any ideas on how I can deal with it? And of course, sometimes you don't need to deal with it. It's enough to acknowledge it. And
Makes a difference.
yeah,
Even just
accept.
acknowledging it and just saying it instead of holding it in.
Mhm.
There's a stigma behind that about
Yeah.
speaking your mind and talking about your mental health or what's going on, and that needs to be erased.
And we have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think about I've left relationships because I've had coffee with someone who went, I can remember it specifically, met a gal for coffee, this is years ago, and she said, I left my relationship, and she was happy about it because I knew she'd been thinking about it for a very long time. She'd been very unhappy. They'd been trying a lot of different things. It was just time to close that door, right? Allow the change of the relationship to happen.
Right.
And I remember sitting there thinking, well, if you can do it, I can totally do it. And remember being struck by that comment that's why we need to be telling our stories and telling them as truthfully as possible. So it's why I have no problem saying I have struggled with suicide. I have done the therapy to be okay with it. I have worked through it. I have, gone from boyfriend to boyfriend. I have been addicted to sex. I have done all those things. They were all coping mechanisms, not unlike any other addiction or thing that you do, whether it's TV or alcohol, you name it. If you're using it to band-aid and to not deal with the thing, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
The thing is once I looked the thing square in the eye and dealt with it, there's nothing to escape anymore. Now it's just like, that's a thing, period.
It's like a poetic tragedy. It's honestly, and not to minimize that, it's literally like we go through all of this and put ourselves in a position of our mental health struggling and trying to figure out how to solve all of these problems and then beating ourselves up for it when it's like if you have panic and then you think about, what am I panicking about? What is the worst thing that can happen? Right. Not to say that if somebody really is going through a depression or feels suicidal, absolutely reach out. We'll have some links below. Talk to people. We're here for you. You can reach out to us on the podcast, and that is not to be taken lightly. Our minds can play tricks on us with anxiety. And so for you to be able to share that and make somebody feel comfortable enough to do and take the steps to talk to somebody or get the help they need, that's pretty amazing.
I mean, there's amazing people who have dedicated their lives to this. And I think that's that if I remove the stigma, then maybe somebody who is struggling with it will reach out and get the help. Good. Awesome. I don't really care what anybody thinks of me anymore. I would much rather support one person to make a change so that they can get, fast forward 10, 12, 18 years, whatever it is. It was 20 plus years ago, 20 years ago, exactly, that my sexual assault happened. And it's taken me literally 19 years to get to a place where I'm okay. That's okay. It can take so long. Like when they report the stats about abuse, whether it's spousal abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, it's hard to talk about it. And I remember the first time I did. And then what was really interesting to me is in the beginning, when I would start to talk about it, one of the things I heard, which was so detrimental to me continuing to talk about it at the time, was, oh, that happens to everybody. And at the time, I remember feeling like, oh, I'm not special, right? And it's no big deal and I shouldn't be having a big deal with it. Versus now I think, but it shouldn't. Why was that something that somebody would even say to me? And now it's like, yes, that does happen to a lot of people. That's a problem. Why is it happening to so many people? And I think that's been an overarching conversation for me, is like, just because it doesn't mean that it should. And we need to be brave about talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And through all of that, you are now about to have another baby. Yes. You have found the love of your life. There is so much that came through this journey of yours. It's quite an incredible story, and I can't wait. I know that you are writing a book,
Am.
and I cannot wait for the listeners to read this book that gets so much more into your story. It's just amazing. How did you get to a place of being open to fully love and find your soulmate?
I fell in love with myself first.
Mm,
You know, there was quite a bit of fear for sure in this last move into love, mostly because I didn't trust myself at all, actually, after the grief, because I could clearly see that I kept on choosing the wrong people, and I was like, why do I keep choosing these people? Not that we're wrong, that's the wrong thing to say, but choosing relationships that either were meant to hurt me, or you know, the partners hadn't done their own personal work. You know, I'm still at this time of recording, I'm still trying to get divorced,
yeah.
and that's challenging, because I experienced that as very challenging, and it's rather humbling, to be completely honest with you, because I would consider myself a communicator, and I want to be known as a communicator. And there's one person on the planet that I have a really hard time communicating with, you know, and there's been a lot of personal growth there, and, you know, right down to, you know, what I would feel like is some judgment as I move into a new relationship, and why should I be happy if I haven't quite ended this? And, you know, when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified to talk about that. For fear of repercussions and anger and some frustrations, which, you know, the counterpart is allowed, right? If I'm allowed, I have to also choose some radical acceptance on the other side. So really, I think just living in the moment and working through it. I'm trying to answer this question because it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember being very afraid to move into the relationship, eager and wanting a relationship, knowing intuitively that I had done the work and that I was showing up very different. I can remember when Mark and I sat down for the first time and catching up as friends, and he said, "You're very different." And I said, "I'm choosing now to live in my feminine. I've always lived very much my masculine energy. I'm choosing now to live in my feminine, and I have no idea what this is supposed to feel like. I feel totally," I said, "I feel naked. Like I feel like I don't know what to do right now. I'm confused." And I said, "So I'm not looking for a relationship. Don't get any don't get any ideas." And you know, it was very clear on my boundaries, because I felt like I had to be, right? Like, don't want this, don't want that. Let's just be friends. And then ended up discovering backcountry camping, which is a great way to get to know somebody, FYI. There's no phones, you know.
It's a really good way to bond.
Really good way to bond. You know, and I took time, but I did, if I'm trusting the Niggle, my Niggle at the time was telling me, you might feel like you're a brand new, you know, baby with these new feelings and sensations, but I wasn't coming into a relationship for the first time looking for something. I wasn't looking, you know, we didn't send any of the, you know, I will love you forever, you know, things. It was quieter. It was like love came softly. It was like, I kind of like you. I kind of like spending time with you. I like who I am when I'm with you. We asked a lot of questions. I had to this time. I felt like saying, look, during my healing, I've realized I have sacrificed my dream of wanting to have more children because I chose partners in the interim who didn't want or couldn't have more kids. And so I would give up part of myself to be with these people, right? And I wanted more kids. It was something I wanted to expand my family. So now I wanted siblings. So I was honest about that. I'm like, look, if you don't want kids, then I gotta, sorry, you know, and I said, I'm like 37, 36. I can't waste any more time, you know, clock is ticking, blah, blah. You know, so I had a lot of these conversations that most relationship experts would say, don't do that. But I wasn't coming from a desperation place of, you know, I want kids and I want to get married. I was like, I know me. I would like to be married again. I'm not divorced yet, but I would like to be married again. I want to wear the dress. I'm not going to feel bad about that, right? I want this kind of love. I want to communicate. I want date nights. And I was just so certain about what would make me happy that it was easy to express that. And you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And so bonus was because I was finally in love with myself. I was at peace with my past. I was at peace with, I'd just done all the healing work. So I was like, look, I'm a mess. This is kind of the deal, but I have a lot of faith in myself and I know where I want to go. And that I attracted somebody who was like, I get it. I dig it. So, I guess it's just do the work, do the work, do the work.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing glamorous about the work, but go do the work.
Oh, well, and you know what? It's beautiful how your story has come to that place. Like, if anything, this is the time in the podcast where our listeners get a little bit of advice or few last words from our special guest today, aka the actual host of Create the Ripple podcast. What would you like to leave our listeners with today?
I really love this question. It's why I like to ask it all the time because it's one of my favorites. Because I don't think we're given enough, we're not handed a microphone on the regular and said, say whatever you want. You have my permission.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I would say is figure out exactly what you want and who you want to be. And I understand that if you start that process today, you may not have all the answers. I was thinking about that myself as I was imagining, like, what would make me really happy? And I was like, I would like to have my divorce finalized. That would be awesome. And I'm being really honest about that in this podcast because I think it's important. And then I started to try to imagine what that would look like. And I was like, oh, that's part of the problem. I don't know exactly what I want that to look like. And again, that's kind of the ugly, uncomfortable stuff. So I got to sit with that and say, what kind of a co-parenting relationship do I really want to have? What kind of, that sort of thing. So if someone's going to be thinking about what do I want my life to look like? You may not know in this moment, but start. So grab a journal, grab a piece of paper, and start to write out what you think it would look like. It's going to change. My life certainly has changed as I've grown and as I learn new things, right? This or better. So start there. And then figure out how you can begin to align your current life with more of what you wrote down. And that's the part that's hard because that's the part that takes courage. It might mean leaving a relationship. It might mean having conversations that you may not have the words for yet. So it might mean that's always what kind of bothers me is I'm like, I'd like to get here. Darn it. There's like 4 steps that I physically have to do before I can get to the end result, right? Figure out what your ideal day would look like and then begin to live like that because I wish everybody could live their ideal life every day, right? The laundry isn't going to go away. Some of those things aren't going to go away, right?
Yeah.
But you can find a level of peace and happiness that you are only dreaming about right now if you just start the process. Figure out what your core values are so it becomes easier to make decisions. I have a friend right now who's recently become an empty nester. And she's like, where do I start? I'm like, your values. If you don't know who you are, figure out where your values are, and then you begin to shape it from there. Right? And a values exercise isn't an easy thing to do either. Because there's the values you wish you were. There's the values you actually were. And to that end, the other day, I used to say I'm a really bad finisher. Do you know what it was though, Angel? It was that I was saying yes to so many things that were not in alignment with what I was. I never wanted to finish them because I'm like, I haven't been a bad finisher in months because I've been saying no to a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't even start the things then I know I'm not going to want to finish. So this thing that I had been penalized for and beating myself up for years wasn't actually the problem. It's not that I'm a horrible finisher. I finish exactly what I want to. I was starting too many things I didn't actually want to finish.
Well, there you go. And there you have it.
There you go. So, back to your question, get clear with you. Everybody else can be negotiated with. Every other contract, every relationship, that's not easy to do. So put on your big girl panties because you're going to need them for sure. Be brave, choose to be courageous. Because when one of us chooses to live at that level of truth, right? Tell the truth about your life, live in that kind of truth, the world does split open. And so I would want more people to be able to live here, live there, find love, be happier, find forgiveness, whatever it is. That's what I want for you.
Oh, see, I could honestly hear you talk for hours. Like I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't want this to end. But you know what? There will be another time that we get back on this. And honestly, Candice, thank you so much for your insight, for everything. I appreciate you so much in my life. And I am so honored that I got to be able to interview you today. And so
fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely adore you. Honestly, you guys check out Candice's website if you're not following her on social media. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, we have it up on the website, CandiceSmiley.com. For Candice's listeners, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that, however, had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee, but I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.